Alright guys, MTech Guy here, and today, well, not today actually, the other day, I was driving home from work in the E60 M5. I was stuck in stop and go traffic. It was a reasonably hot day, and the car decided that would be a perfect time to present me with a multitude of warning lights. So yeah, this is great. Now, it's not the first time this has happened. These faults have popped up a couple of times in the past, very briefly. Both times, even before I got a chance to scroll through the list of faults, it went straight away, it cleared itself, and then it came right. The car ran absolutely fine. In both circumstances, I did put it down to possibly just a low voltage issue, because there are times when the car will sit here for 3 or 4 weeks, doesn't get driven. I'm not always proactive enough to leave it on the charger either, and then I'll decide I want to drive it to work for the week, and usually the first day I take it out, by the time I get close to work, normally I have to stop for fuel on the way, like you do with one of these things. And when I pull away from the petrol station, that's normally when it's popped up that couple of times before, but like I say, it cleared itself straight away. But this time the faults did latch all the way home, and even the next morning when I started the car, they were still there. Now, although these faults are coming from very separate modules from the car, they're all associated with one module, all tied in with one module, and that's the DSC system. So what I did the following morning, before I drove back to work, I plugged the scan tool in, went through, scanned all the modules for faults, and each module that was registering the fault, all the faults were pretty much specific to the DSC module, in particular all 4 wheel speed sensors not receiving the signal that's been transmitted from the DSC unit to the individual modules themselves. Now obviously it's going to be pretty unlikely that all 4 wheel speed sensors have failed all at the same time. Now that leads me to believe that it's either something to do with the power supply to the DSC module or the module itself. Now the DSC units for quite a number of generations of BMWs now have been prone to failure. Sometimes it's the pump motor that fails, but normally these give very specific fault codes. Can also be the DSC module itself. They do have some very thin strands of wires on the circuit board, and these can start to come apart sometimes, and they can give intermittent faults. So when it's cold, everything might look alright, and then normally when things warm up a little bit, them strands will just start expanding and separate away from the board, and then that's when you normally get the faults. And often it can be associated with the wheel speed sensors. But what I found is, after I scanned the codes, I took off to work again. By the time I got to the end of my street, everything was fine, and it's been fine ever since. I've driven the car for the rest of the week. It was a Monday when it faulted. Everything's been fine since. So it's not so easy to diagnose a fault when it's not actually faulting at the time that you're looking through things. But just going off the way the car behaved and the fault codes, I'm guessing that it's all sort of pointing towards the DSC systems. So in today's video, I do want to work through a few things, a few basic checks that we can carry out just to see if it is pointing towards that DSC system. Now, a couple of other things worth mentioning. These fault lights do look like the brake trifecta light issue that a lot of people have experienced with their BMWs, and often it turns out to be the steering angle sensor failing. And most of the time that relates to the type of steering angle sensor that has the optical reader in it, and often you can just pull things apart, clean up the optical disc, put everything back together, and normally that remedies it. But this being a really early E60 M5, it doesn't have the optical type steering angle sensor, as the brush type, and although they can still fail, they don't fail as frequently as the optical type. Plus the fact, when I read all the fault codes, there was nothing there for the steering angle sensor. Everything looked all good. All the codes were pretty much relating to the communication from the DSC system to whichever modules were showing a fault. Now, with regards to low voltage issues, now like I said earlier, this might be the case just due to the fact that the car does sit for some time now and again, and then I'll use it sort of sporadically. Most of the time I do put a maintenance charger on the terminals under the bonnet there, and normally if it's the voltage regulator on the alternator that's starting to fail or failed completely, this will normally be a consequence of that happening, will be something like the DSC system dropping out, a low voltage situation. But I had a brand new BMW alternator, including the regulator, fitted about 3 years ago, and at the same time I had a genuine BMW battery fitted also. Now, the genuine BMW batteries, I've always had long life out of them in the past, so I'm pretty confident everything's all good with regards to the battery, the alternator, the voltage regulator. If anything, maybe the voltage has just dipped slightly while I've had the car sitting for 2 or 3 weeks, so I think I need to take a closer look at the DSC system. Now if it's the DSC module itself that's failed, we do have 3 options available to put things right. Firstly, we can buy a brand new one from BMW. You can either buy the whole DSC unit or just the module itself, which they call a repair kit. Secondly, you can buy a used one, a decent used one. You normally have to match the part number as best you can, or it needs to come from the same era, the same make and model, but that requires a little bit of programming and coding, and sometimes you don't know what you're getting into, and because these things fail so frequently, you don't know if it's halfway there. It might only last a few months and then you're in the same situation again. Or we can remove the module and send it away to repair. Now this is probably the most common way of approaching the issue. It's the most cost-effective solution in most cases. And the great thing about sending your original one away, it's already coded and programmed to the vehicle, so you don't need to mess around with anything like that. It's just pretty much fit it and away you go once you've bled everything. But it's not always as simple as that. If you do send it away for repair, that you can encounter problems. Sometimes it might take the repairer 2 or 3 goes to get it 100% right, so that means removing it from the car each time, send it away, they send it back, you refit it, you rebleed everything, so it might take 2 or 3 goes in some cases. Also, you pretty much have to butcher things to get the lid off the back of it to carry out the repair to the circuit board. Sometimes things can get damaged along the way, and that's normally when you'll get a message from the repairer saying, oh, it's uneconomical to repair. Sometimes that might be the case. Sometimes it might have just got damaged in the process of opening things up or carrying out the repair. And if that does happen, then you're in a situation where you need to either buy a second-hand one or a brand new one, which either one will require programming. Now, just to complicate things a little more, the first year of the E60 M5, 2005, the module did change, the part number changed September. Now, mine being a really early E60 M5, mine's a June 2005 model. If I buy the later one, everywhere I've looked it says it's not compatible with the earliest type DSC system. Whether this is true or not, whether it'll work or not, I don't know. Maybe once it's programmed and everything, it might work fine. I'm not 100% sure on that at this stage. So that gives me a very small window to find either a used one or a brand new one that I think is going to be properly compatible. And then to complicate things even further, if I did choose to go with a brand new one from the dealer, from BMW, they're not currently available at this time. Now, it's not that they're no longer available, it's just that because it's an older model, because it's not something that's very sought after, what BMW normally do is wait until they've got multiple orders for this part, and then they'll go out and do a run of them and then make them available to the customers that put an order in for them. Now, this can take some time, sometimes it's a few months, and of course, even though it'll be the most effective route to take with a brand new module, it is the most expensive route to take also. But at this stage, I don't even know for certain that it is the module that's failed. It's probably more than likely, but today we'll run through a few checks just to see if we can narrow it down. So to start off with, what we'll do is run through a few basic checks. First of all, we'll start small. We'll check all the fuses to the system. We'll also check the power supply relay to the DSC system. Now, the DSC unit actually sits in the front left wheel well there. We'll get it jacked up. We'll remove that front left wheel. I want to remove the wheel well liner, and then what I'm going to do is just inspect things down there, make sure no rats have been having a party down there chewing at the wiring to the DSC system. And what we'll also do is just remove the connector, make sure there's no corrosion there, make sure everything looks real clean. And in some cases, I have seen it with just something as simple as removing the connector, cleaning it up, reconnecting it, even doing that 2 or 3 times, it seems to clean things up and it can clear the fault completely. I have seen that on a few BMWs in the past, but you never know. We'll see what we'll find. So I did already start off with the relay that's in the boot on the right hand side behind the interior panel. That's that relay right there. It's 30G. What I did, I pulled it out and that was pulled apart and had an inspection. Everything looks okay with the relay. So next up, we'll move on to the fuses. Right, so the relay's all good. So let's see which fuses I need to take a look at. Right, so we've got in the luggage compartment, DSC 66, 68, 66, 68, so the 2 5-amp ones there. In the glove box, we've got the ASP DSC number 1, number 25, 1 50-amp, 25, 30 amps, so they'd be pretty big fuses. Fuse 25, which is the 30 amp one right there. Looks alright. Right, number one fuse, the 50 amp up in the corner there. 50 amp one looks okay. Right, so we've got fuses 66 and 68, the two 5 amp ones there. All good. All good. Alright, so the relay looked all good. The fuses look okay too. So next up, we'll take a closer look at the DSC unit itself, which lives at the left wheel arch, just at the back of the wheel arch there. So what we'll do is we'll jack up the front of the car, we'll remove the wheel, we'll undo the screws and the plastic clips for the wheel liner. We can just fold the back half out there, and then we can get in there and take a closer look at the wiring and the DSC unit itself, see if there's anything of any concern going on there. Alright, let's take a closer look. Right, if we take a peek through here, we can find our DSC unit right there. If we take a good look at the wiring, it doesn't actually look in bad shape. It's all still retained nicely. No signs of rodent damage. It doesn't look like it's been scuffing anywhere on the bodywork. Sort of worn through the tape. Still restrained there, okay. That's right. That looks alright too. Right, so next up we'll disconnect the electrical connector. We'll just give it a good clean up. So we'll start off by pulling this clip upwards. Just to come right up. This connector just pull out. There we go. Pins in the module look nice and clean. What's this look like? Looks alright. So I think what we'll do is just give these two contact points a good clean up with some electrical contact cleaner. I'll just reconnect it 2 or 3 times just to clean any tarnish off that might be present, but to be honest, it is looking pretty good. I'll just give that a minute to flash off. Right, now we'll reconnect it. That's that back together now, and well, it's kind of good news that everything's looking in really good shape in here, but also it doesn't really give us any clues as to why it was throwing the warning lights associated with the DSC. Now, if you do ever need to remove the control unit, which is this section over the back here, now most BMWs, you can actually separate this quite easily from the main unit itself, where the solenoids are, but due to the positioning of this one on the E60 M5, it's right against the frame rail there, so you can't really get at the bolts around the back easily, so it may mean removing the whole thing. You'll probably unbolt it and flex it enough just to get a small ratchet around there to get the Torx bolts out, but you do need quite a bit of distance to actually slide this off the main unit itself. So due to the position, it is quite tricky. I think what I'll do is just make a note of the part numbers while I've got everything apart and access to it now, just in case I do need to search up a replacement one, or even just a spare to have on the shelf. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys. Everything looks alright. Alright guys, so there we have it. So we haven't been able to say with 100% certainty that that DSC module has failed, so it's a little bit inconclusive at the end of this video, unfortunately, but at least we've narrowed a few things out. So if it does fail again in the future, I'm sort of a decent portion through the diagnostic procedure already. So we've narrowed out a few items there. Now then, if it doesn't fail again, I'm not going to get too carried away. I'm not just going to start pulling the DSC unit out there, sending it away for repair just for the sake of it. Like I said early on in this video, I don't want to end up in a position where I'm sending it away for repair and then it either gets damaged or it's not repairable, and then all I'm doing is introducing a problem. So if it's all working 100% moving forward, I think I'm just going to leave things alone. But of course, if it does pop up again, then we're going to have to take a step further. So I'll see how I get on with it, and what I'll do, I will put a video out whichever direction it goes, whether a few weeks, few months goes by and it's fine, or whether things pop up again, then faults pop up again, things start to fail, and then we'll see what steps we take to put things right. If you found the video interesting or useful, don't forget to give it a like, and make sure you go and check out the rest of my YouTube channel for more BMW E60 M5 content. Consider subscribing if that's your cup of tea. I'm MTech Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.